There's only 24 hours in a day. I got a pair of earbuds and I wish there was a way that I could know just what I want to listen to. There's 150,000 shows that I'm not sitting through. When the world is dark and boring, let us do your exploring. Pod on pod. Pod on pod.
Welcome to Pod on Pod, a guide to the world of podcasts because it's not your daddy's radio. We're your hosts.
I'm Josh.
And I'm Joel. And today on Pod, we're going to be discussing a little show called The Bionic Broadcast as Listener Appreciation Month continues. We hope you enjoyed this one. We hope you enjoyed this whole month. We've got a great lineup of shows, and we'll tell you more about that at the end of the show. Hey, one thing, though, quickly, before we begin, I want to remind you, yes.
You know what the best part about doing a listener-submitted month?
What?
Is if they don't like it, they only have themselves to blame.
I suppose that's true. Before we start talking about today's show, I do want to remind you, if you want to help us out on finding some great sponsors to help bring you more and better content here at Pod on Pod, you can fill out a quick survey for us. You can go to survey.libsyn.com/podonpod, or you can find links to that on our website, podonpod.com. But what that'll do is that'll help us know exactly who you are. Not exactly, I guess, but just generally, whether you're a guy or a girl, how old you are, what part of the country you come from. Because really, and it's really crazy. You might think, well, they know who I am because they see where I'm downloading from. No, we can see literally just that. How many people download and like what part of the world you're from. And that's the only information that we have. So sponsors generally want a little more info than that, and you can help us do that. If you help us by filling out that survey, then we'll help you by entering you in a drawing for a $25 iTunes card. We'll give that away at the end of this month.
You know what I think's only fair?
What's that?
It's if we give them the information of us that we're asking for of them.
Okay. I am a 33-year-old male from northern Louisiana.
I'm a 33-year-old Caucasian married male from North Louisiana.
I am all of those other things, too. I'm also Caucasian, and I am also married. I have children, which I don't guess we've talked about before.
Are you trying to one-up me in the demographics?
No, I'm just saying I am also those things that I forgot to mention that you added to yours. But there you go. That's a little bit about us. We would love to know a little bit about you guys so that we can better serve you and bring you more and better stuff. That's what we're all about here at Pod on Pod. All right, now let's get on with the show, so to speak. So here's the deal. As this month continues, we're going to be bringing you a lot of different shows, some big shows, some little shows, some shows hosted by ladies, some shows hosted by minorities. Today's show is called The Bionic Broadcast. This is another show that was submitted by the podcasters themselves in the long line that we've had, like the Monette Dixon line and the Martha and Eric
I didn't
show.
know that.
Yeah, this was submitted by the podcasters. Yeah. You suck in your breath. You've been giving me hints all week that this review is not going to be kind.
I thought I was being trolled.
You actually texted me at one point, whoever submitted this was just messing with me.
Yeah.
So let's get into why you might think that. Let's talk about this show. Today's show, The Bionic Broadcast. You can find more at bionicbroadcast.com. The two hosts are Nick and GJ. They've got producer Justin on the ones and twos, and Justin's actually the one that submitted this show. All right. On Pod, we talk about a show by breaking down the audio quality, the host likability, the production values, and the content itself. I got to tell you, with this show more than any other, a lot of this sort of bleeds in together for me. Do you agree with that? Does that make sense to you? I feel like if I want to talk about audio quality, part of that I'm going to have to be talking about production values.
I feel
production values is going to lead into content.
I don't know if they bleed into each other. I know that often I'm the one bleeding when I listen to it.
Okay, from the ears?
Yes.
All right. Well, let's start. Do you want to start with the most egregious error in your mind, the production values?
I don't even know if that is what bothers me the most.
Well, let's talk a little bit about what this show is like. First of all, I want to say that my first thought on this was that it's zanier than morning radio. Holy cacao.
Here's the deal. I'm going to put this right up front, right up top, and then we'll get into it.
Okay.
So if Justin doesn't want to hear this, he can stop listening now.
All right, then.
I didn't think it was possible to package a podcast with everything I hate about podcasting, I would have thought this was a white whale, man. I would have thought this was a unicorn, a triple rainbow of a podcast. Yet it exists.
All of the things that you don't like.
Oh,
give us
man.
give us that magic grail of evilness. That the triumvirate of wrongness as far as Josh's rules of podcasting.
Okay,
It's the antipod.
I'm consistent. I have been 100% completely consistent. So this shouldn't come as a surprise with I can't stand the voice changes, the zaniness. And here's the thing is these guys have really good voices, man. They have great diction. They do a lot of things that I am envious of, right? I know I sound like a bumpkin, right? I know I pop. I know I slur my words. I'm trying.
The Weekly Planet podcast said that I had that sweet Jesse Thorne voice. So I'm going to say I'm doing okay.
Yeah, and these guys have wonderful, wonderful voices, and they choose to use it for evil.
Okay. Here's it really like the show. First of all, when I say zany morning radio,
Es muy caliente, and he was like, arr, arr, arr. Can you believe that? Can you believe that? I don't know what he's talking about. Ooga.
If you've ever seen the Howard Stern movie Private Parts, like the early scenes in that where he's showing the radio station with the guys like literally got like the cowbell in the studio and he's ringing the thing and he's doing the Foley sound effects and everything in the middle of his conversation while he's reading the headlines. That's what these guys are doing.
It kills me. And granted, what I just did,
what they're doing.
What I just did, is an exaggeration.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
But not by much.
So let's talk about. Let's start with the production value. Well, no, but like I said, the production values and the content, it's all going to bleed together to me. Well, no, let's start with audio quality.
Okay.
Let's start there. They've got pretty good recordings. It's
Yep.
not going to win any awards for production, I don't think, because I think they're not working with the top quality gear necessarily.
Hands down, the best part of the show.
Yeah, it's totally reasonable, well put together as far as like in a technical sense, and well served. The feed works, etc. So let's move on to the content itself. How do they break the show down? Here's like the first moment. Okay, you go ahead.
Okay, just so we get this out of the way, because we've got taken to task before over things like this.
Okay.
Especially when it came to the Sklar Bros. This show is kind of two podcasts. So you have the Bionic Broadcast, and then you have What You Watching?
Yeah.
And sometimes What You Watching is the entire podcast, but sometimes it's a portion
Of a larger show. Of
Right.
a full episode.
Right, so it kind of goes both ways.
Well, for instance, we also reviewed The Bugle with John Oliver.
Right, and when John Oliver's not there,
They have sort of a mini episode where they do best of, or maybe Andy just does some of his stand-up or
Right.
something like that. So that makes sense. Okay, so let's talk about some of the features in this show when you do have a full episode. First of all, they've got their updates, which is like news segments, right?
yep,
All right. Then they do What You Drinking.
yes.
This is a segment I find many generic podcasts or podcasts about specific topics they include. Like they make it a point that all of them are having a drink while they're doing the podcast, and they mention that early on what they're trying this week.
I literally don't care what you're drinking when you are the most negative podcast in the history of podcasting. I'm literally going, here we try to bring a little bit of the show that we're doing into ours, right? Maybe there's a little feel, a little whiff of the show throughout. So I'm going to try to keep my negativity at about the level that I feel they do.
Okay. All
They
right.
hate everything, man.
They don't hate everything.
Anything popular, they hate. So I got a little tummy ache from listening to Too Much Sick and Wrong. And
Yes.
through that experience, there was a very kind of hipsterish through line, kind of emo feel to the show. If you don't listen to a lot in a row, you will probably never ever notice.
Sure.
This show reeks of that.
Okay. All right. So after they do the updates, after they do What You Drinking, they take a break in the middle of the show. And this struck me as so odd. Since then, I've now heard another show. We're going to review Dog Thoughts podcast next week, and they do a similar thing. And then it occurred to me, this is the same thing that Scarborough Country and Scarborough County do. In the middle of the show, without taking an ad break, they just say, we'll be right back, and they play a segment of a song. I do not understand this. Do you think that's eventually supposed to be an ad slot?
Well, maybe, but it could be that, hey, maybe this is the moment where you hear something pleasant.
Or is this a different way of handling the tactic of it's hard to have a free-flowing hour-and-a-half conversation that's even remotely interesting, so we're going to need to break it up every 20 or 30 minutes or so. And as we discussed, like with Harmontown, they do it by bringing on another guest. Is this another way that somebody tries to break up and format the show? Like they're like, oh, well, everybody else's long-form content has segments, so I'll make mine have segments.
Could be.
All right, then. It's nice that you have so much to add about this show. Let's talk about the sex news segment. Was that your favorite part?
No. I do have a favorite part, though.
Okay. And then cover songs to close the show. Cover songs to close the show was one of the things that I really enjoyed. Every week they have a different cover song of a well-known song or whatever.
Which is funny because I'm surprised that they're not like, oh, we don't do cover songs if it's not the original.
I don't think here's the deal. You really found this attitude with the Sick and Wrong podcast, and you found it on this one too, and I don't remember that. That particular attitude didn't stick out to me.
In this show? Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Are you literally kidding me? They group people like no other show I've been to.
Oh, no, absolutely, and I've got some bones to pick, but not that particular one.
No, but they never group anybody in a positive way, and if they're talking about a group, it's always showing whatever is negative about that group. Guess what else they didn't really care for? Any movie that's come out since 1974.
Yeah, there was a general...
they don't like anything that's popular. Freaking anything that is popular, they hate.
Let's move back, though, for a moment. Or over, I should say, because we've been talking about content. Let's talk about host likability, because that's where we really are right now. All right, so you got Nick and GJ. Those are your two guys. Nick and Gij.
Yep.
And then the producer, Justin. Did you hear Justin on any episode? I don't remember hearing Justin speak.
I think
maybe once.
I think yeah.
Okay, but very little. He's not a general. He's not
part
on
of the show really.
Okay, Nick. This is what I wrote about Nick. I said I went to a small high school. There were 51 people in my senior class. That meant that there were really three different groups of people: the people you wanted to hang out with, the people you tolerated hanging out with, and then the people you actively avoided as much as possible. I think Nick probably would have been in the tolerated pack, meaning I would have laughed at his jokes, but as soon as college allowed me the opportunity to escape, I never would have spoken to him again. This is not a guy. And I think, as you said, the putting people in the box, they were specifically having a discussion about blackface incidents with Juliana Hough, and the whole time, I was hiding my face. I was like, why are you talking about this?
Here's the deal. It's not just that, man. It is not just that. Being from the South like we are, we often get categorized just simply by the way that we speak, right?
Sure.
We have a natural diphthong. We got some twang.
We speak slowly. We speak more slowly.
We sound, I'm sure, ridiculously ignorant.
The accent is like the one thing that hasn't come up very much in our reviews or feedback. For me too.
But here's the deal.
I know we don't have accents as worse as bad as some of the people around here, but
Nick
we
and
both have accents.
Have great voices. I really enjoyed their voices. And it made me think, just because you have a great voice doesn't mean you should be heard. Because as well as they speak, I found that I can't think of anything I agreed with them on anything, and not just didn't agree. Like they what came out of their mouth was so ridiculous.
Well, let me tell you this. This is a great example of how, the good thing about podcasting is that there's so little restraint put on it that you can let a conversation really flow and take on a life of its own. For instance, I mentioned the blackface discussion. They're talking about Juliana Hough dressed in blackface. She dressed up as the character from Orange is the New Black.
Right.
She and a bunch of her friends for Halloween last year, I think. I said, generally, I hate the idea of a few white guys sitting around in a room talking about race relations. I think that's always going to work out badly for everybody involved. You can't You and I can't have that discussion either because we would need to involve someone of a different race to have an open and honest and real and meaningful discussion about that. You and I are going to have a very similar viewpoint on things because we come from the same background and experiences.
Yeah, but
largely.
they take subjects that should be meaningful
and make them meaningless. Well, this
Yes.
is so. This conversation goes on, and as I said, I'm hiding my face. I'm like, oh, guys, please stop talking about this. You're making yourselves. You're going to be so ashamed of this someday. And then GJ brings it around. And he makes the point. He sort of stumbles upon the point, it almost sounds like. He says, it's the context and legacy of blackface that makes that so bad. He says there's no context of white people being made fun of by another dominant race, so it's not offensive to make fun of white people. And I was like, yes, thank you for finally realizing the thing. So, like, they talk their way into occasionally a meaningful statement or understanding or realization, and then they make a funny noise and play a song, and then they talk some more bull. Sort of. That's the way it went to me. I'm going to talk about Jeej for a minute. I like him for some reason. I really did. He says horrible things a lot of the time, just as much as Nick does.
His name is Jeej. I mean, what like?
Well,
like,
that's not his
I
name.
feel like,
It's obviously a way to keep his pseudonymity or whatever.
Right, what I'm saying
Nick
is-
wants to be a DJ and Jeej doesn't.
what I'm saying is the name Jeej brings to mind a certain.
I think. Or is Jeej the DJ? Maybe Jeej is the DJ.
Regardless, the name Jeej gives you a visual.
A little bit, yeah. Anyway, he seemed like a guy that I could have a conversation with. Maybe. All right. We said a lot of fairly bad things about this show.
Yep.
You did say you had a favorite moment.
Yep.
What was it?
When it ends.
Oh, you're going to get hate mail this week.
I don't care.
You're going to get
I
your
really
first
don't care.
week of hate
Look,
mail.
I thought maybe I have gone soft when it came to listening to podcasts because going back, I've been giving out a lot of ones lately, right?
Yeah, the one is your soft.
Nothing's really excited me. And nothing I've really hated. This show has combined what I felt was an attitude on Sick and Wrong that I didn't really care for.
Yeah.
And the hokiness of Bob Ball that I didn't care for on Ward Rango. And it's now my least favorite podcast I have ever had the pleasure of listening to.
It's your least favorite show you've ever heard.
Ever.
So your favorite moment was when it was over.
In fact,
your favorite moment will be when this review is over.
I will, like, if I listen to a podcast and I think somebody has something that has value for someone into it, I'll suggest it, right?
Yes.
Because I think it'll fit that personality. I will never suggest this podcast
Oh my. Okay.
to be listened to by anyone, even people I do not like.
All right then. I'll tell you my favorite moment. My favorite moment was, and I haven't heard anybody really point this out, but they talked about the fact that everyone lost their minds over Zach Braff using Kickstarter to make a movie. Do you remember this?
Yeah, I remember.
Okay. Everybody got all mad. What are you doing? You're a millionaire.
Well,
you should just do a
made fun
thing.
of them mostly.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
a lot of people were angry, especially
Sure.
people that use Kickstarter. Nobody got mad when Veronica Mars made a Kickstarter movie. And you know who owns Veronica Mars? Warner Brothers. That's like an actual property that's owned by a real studio. And they made that point, and I was very thankful that somebody made that point. I hadn't heard that kind of anger about that. And I thought the same thing. I don't watch Veronica Mars. I don't know. Maybe it's wonderful. But it seemed to me it was just like people like her, and they didn't like Zach Braff. So they wanted to complain about that one.
Doesn't bother me when Zach Braff did it. Doesn't bother me that Veronica Mars was made.
Here's my other favorite
People are going
moment.
to spend the money how they want to spend their money.
Here's my other favorite moment.
Okay.
This show made me realize anyone can do an Arnold Schwarzenegger impersonation, and I will enjoy it and probably laugh at it. I did not care for most of their voices, but they both do an Arnold Schwarzenegger impersonation for a little while. There's an episode called Arnold Centric. The whole segment is actually really funny. I laughed several times out loud. Anybody can do an Arnold Schwarzenegger impersonation,
You
and
know
I'll
what?
enjoy it.
You know what? I think I'll have to mark that one as one I won't listen to as well.
You're mean. All right, alternate titles. We're going to go to alternate titles now.
I don't remember
Name of
mine.
the show is called The Bionic Broadcast. I would call it Cacophony. As in like, no wait, cacophony. I would call it cacophony. That's what I would call it.
I would call it the Bionic Cast.
All right. How about GJ and the Bear?
That's actually, I really like that. I would probably listen to it again if that was its title.
There you go, guys. You can change the title of the show, GJ and the Bear. You can probably get Josh in on one more episode.
I could call it the Hate on It Broadcast.
The Hate on It Broadcast. All right, then. That's about all I had.
I won't use my other names.
They were all you had was some other variations on the cast. I think, mostly.
Something like that.
Hey, listen. Here's the deal, though. I do appreciate Justin for submitting the show, and I did think of somebody to suggest this show to. Actually, thought of somebody to suggest the show to, and because of that, and because of some other factors, now that we're to the part of the show where we rate it, I'm going to give the show one earbud. I am. I'm going to give it one earbud. As our second show for Listener Appreciation Month.
You're a disgrace.
This is all for the
podcasting,
listeners.
sir.
This is all for the listeners, Josh. What are you going to give this show?
What? It's all for the listeners that they get to really format our show.
Yes.
But I don't want someone.
Our opinions are our own.
Yeah, I don't want someone to listen to the show and think
not
that I
on the
like a
take
show
or
that I
anything.
don't like. That's why this gets half an earbud, man.
Half an earbud.
Half an earbud.
All right, then.
And that half has Ebola on it.
That's that we're recording this early. That joke may be old by next week. I don't know. You got to watch out. Josh, that wraps up this episode of Pod on Pod, or just about does anyway. We were talking about the Bionic Broadcast. You can check that show out for yourself at bionicbroadcast.com. If you want to know what episodes we checked out, I listened to episode 48, 59, and 64. Do you know which episode you listened to?
I listened to the first, the earliest one I could listen to. I listened to one in the middle, and whatever the latest one was.
All right.
I think that's my format to listening to podcasts now.
All right, then. I think that's a fair sample size, sample rate, whatever. I think there'll be times when you break it.
Well, yeah, because if it's an interview style, then I'll go and listen to the guests that I want to hear.
So that's 1 week of this first issue of Listener Appreciation Month in the books, folks. Next, we'll have a new episode up. It'll be about the Dog Thoughts podcast, and then we're going to be talking about the art of manliness as Listener Appreciation Listener Appreciation Month continues. Josh, got anything else to add?
Man, I actually have listened to the earliest episode of Dog Thoughts, and I want to see how that develops, man.
All right, I'll say this. If you want to do us a favor this week, I would love to see some new Twitter followers. You can find us at podonpod.com if you use the Twitter. Tweet us. Tell us what episodes you found us on and what's been your favorite review so far. That'd be fun. Listener Appreciation Month continues next week right here at podonpod.com. Until next week, we're your hosts.
I'm Josh.
I'm Joel. Theme song, and let's run it.
Are you wanting something funny? Are you wanting something smart? A show on astral projection or the history of art? Do you want to learn a language or how to play guitar? Just leave it up to Joel and Josh. Pod on pod. Pod on pod.
Pod on Pod is a proud member of the Procast Network, a Procreate production. Procreate is a community of artists in film, music, the digital arts, and fine arts that helps them connect and collaborate on projects. You can find out more at teamprocreate.com. For more great podcasts from the Procast Network, check out Movie Buzzed. Every week, your host, Zach, and some special guests review a new film. It's time for good friends, a great movie, and a good buzz. The Pod on Pod theme song was written and produced by Adam Dale. You can find more information about him on our website, as well as links to his forthcoming album, Cats and Dogs. Our musical guest this week is No Limits. Find more about them on our website.